am the Director of Grants here at Houston Arts Alliance. Welcome to the 2023 Cities Initiative Workshop. I will be your host this afternoon, and today we will provide you with an overview of our work at HAA, details about city-funded opportunities, specifically Cities Initiative, and of course, we'll review the application process for the Cities Initiative grant. First, I'd like to start with introductions from the team at Houston Arts Alliance. I'll just kind of popcorn around as I see folks. Karen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. Feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat. My name is Karen Martinez. I am the Director of Communications. I will be moderating the chat today. Thank you for coming. Let me know if you have any questions.
Awesome. Thank you, Karen. Mo.
Hi, everyone. My name is Mo Munley. I'm one of the grants coordinators for the grants department at Houston Arts Alliance, and we're so thankful that everybody's here and looking forward to your questions.
Amazing. Val.
Hi, guys. I'm Valentino Rutia, also known as Val. It's a pleasure to meet all of y'all, and I can't wait to work with y'all over the next coming weeks.
Thank you, Val. Clara? Clara might be having issues with the audio, so how about Andrea?
Hi everyone, I'm Andrea Torres, one of the other grants assistants here in the grants department at HAA. Thank you so much for joining us for our first workshop of the year for Cities Initiative grant.
Thank you, Andrea. Sharif.
Hi everyone, I'm Sharif. I'm a grants coordinator and data analyst at HAA, and thank you all for participating, and I look forward to helping in any way we can.
Thank you, Sharif. And what about John?
Hey, y'all. My name is John Abadili. I'm the CEO at HAA. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, John. And it looks like we also have a board member here. Louise, would you like to say hello?
Sure. Hi, I'm Louise Upshaw McClinney. I'm a member of the Houston Arts Alliance board and also co-chair of the grants committee. And we're excited to learn about all of you and answer your questions. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. All right. So thank you for the folks from the HAA team joining us today. Really appreciate you. We encourage you all to use the Q&A chat feature over the course of the presentation. We will end this workshop with a live Q&A and by answering the Q&A questions in the chat. This presentation will also be recorded and made available on our website under houstonartsalliance.com/workshops. So you will be able to access this workshop after today, if you'd like to refer back to it. Alrighty, so let's jump right in. First and foremost, who is Houston Arts Alliance? So Houston Arts Alliance, or HAA, is a local arts and cultural organization whose principal work is to implement the City of Houston's visions, values, and goals for its arts, grant making, and civic arts investments. HAA's work is conducted through contracts with the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, or MOCA. HAA also executes privately funded special projects to meet the needs of the arts community, such as disaster preparedness, research on the state of the arts in Houston, and temporary public art projects that vitalize neighborhoods. The Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, again, we refer to them as MOCA. They oversee our work through a contract. Additionally, MOCA works to shape policy and practice in our sector. They advocate on behalf of the arts for essential resources and opportunities and help advance other city departments' arts and cultural initiatives. So what about our funding? What is the resource? Where does it come from? So our work is made possible through public and private funding. Private funding supports the Disaster Services Division, and public funding supports both grant making and civic art investments. So as artists and arts organizations, you may be interested to know that our public funding for the arts in Houston comes through the city of Houston through a tax on hotel occupancy. So when someone books a hotel room, a percentage of that tax is collected and is dedicated to promoting arts, culture, and tourism. This tax is called the hotel occupancy tax, also referred to as HOT. It's collected quarterly, and once it's collected, it becomes hot revenue and is available for distribution. So the hotel bookings turn into hotel occupancy tax, that becomes hot revenue. The city of Houston collects that revenue. So to distribute the funding, HAA facilitates, well, before I get there. So the hot revenue is collected, and then the city of Houston distributes that money to Houston Arts Alliance for us to distribute by way of a competitive grants process. So we have 5 different grant categories. So the first, before we get into those categories, so the hot revenue allocations are determined by our contract with the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, and they're split into 3 groups. So 74.5% is delivered in grants to the Houston arts community. 16.5% goes directly to Miller Outdoor Theater, and 9% is allocated to the Houston Arts Alliance for administrative purposes. Of the 74.5% allocation, an even distribution goes, so 36% is allocated to organizations with an operating budget under 10 million, and for individual artists and creatives. 36% is allocated toward organizations with budgets over 10 million. And then finally, 2.5% is allocated towards Cities Initiative, the special grant program that is open to both individuals and organizations that we'll be talking about today. So HAA administers 5 grant programs which appear in our guidelines, a comprehensive guide that provides prospective applicants with all of the information needed to apply for grants from Houston Arts Alliance in 2023. Those 5 grant programs include support for artists and creative individuals, where individual artists can apply for up to $15,000. Support for organizations. There are 3 different support for organization categories, SO1, SO2, and SO3. We have our festival program where organizations can apply for up to $10,000. Our Let Creativity Happen program where individuals and artists can apply for up to $2,500. And Cities Initiative, where individuals can apply for up to $10,000. There is an option to apply for more if you request a meeting with the team, and I'll give a little bit more of that information in a little bit. Cities Initiative and Let Creativity Happen will have 3 application rounds this year. The first deadline is April 30th. Application submissions for this deadline should only include projects taking place after July 31st, 2023. The second round's deadline is June 30th, 2023. Those are for projects taking place after September 30th, 2023. And the third deadline is September 30th, 2023. And those are for projects taking place after December 31st, 2023. Another important thing to note about the other grant programs, so support for artists and creative individuals, support for organizations, and festival grant programs will have 1 deadline this year with the application launching this summer. Make sure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our newsletter to be made aware of when those application cycles open. A few highlights about Let Creativity Happen and Cities Initiative. So Let Creativity Happen and Cities Initiative grants will continue to be funded with cash in hand funding as they are currently. Awardees, so any applicant who was awarded, you are only able to receive one award per year for Cities Initiative and Let Creativity Happen. Lastly, Let Creativity Happen and Cities Initiative both have 1-year grant terms from the notification date. This means that you are required to have your public presentation conducted within the 1-year grant term unless staff is notified of any delays in advance and an extension is granted. You should not wait until the last month of your grant term to advise the staff of any obstacles you are facing. We are here to help, and we highly encourage you to meet with us so we can help and support you in as many ways and as soon as possible. So please don't hesitate to reach out because again, we are here to help and support. You can email us if you have any questions regarding your grant or the term at grants@haatxhelp.zendesk.com. So where do you start? Let's talk about how to begin your application process. In this section of the workshop, we'll cover information that's relevant to all grant programs, and then we'll specifically discuss requirements for the Cities Initiative grant program. To start, it's always very important to read the guidelines thoroughly. So the guidelines provide dedicated instructions for each and all city-funded grant opportunities. By starting here, you will be able to see which grant program is right for you and what you need to be successful. It is expected that every applicant follows the same guidelines. Therefore, it is highly recommended that all applicants thoroughly review the guidelines. This document can prove to be extremely beneficial in increasing your likelihood of success. So let's talk about eligibility. Houston Arts Alliance staff reviews the following important criteria to ensure that you are eligible and can advance to the panel stage of our process. So all applicants must provide official documentation demonstrating a physical address in the city of Houston limits. It's important to note that PO boxes are not accepted. An individual applicant must be at least 18 years or older, which will be verified by applicant submission of an official state-issued identification card, passport, or other documentation. We do have a more comprehensive list in our guidelines for you to refer to official documents that we can accept. To make sure you're not confused, if you are an applicant who is applying as an organization, you do not need to provide proof of age. But for our applicants who are individual artists and creatives applying to Cities Initiative or Let Creativity Happen, support for artists and creative individuals, you must be at least 18 years or older to apply, and you will need to submit proof of your age. Applicant scope of work must have a clear public presentation component verified by our staff and their review of your application. Applicants may only submit one application per grant program per deadline per year. So the projects that you are proposing cannot be the same, and you cannot seek duplicate funding for the same project via different grant programs. To put this in perspective for organizations, you cannot apply to both Let Creativity Happen and Cities Initiative with the same project. The same goes for individuals. They all have to be different projects. So submitting the same proposal to both grant programs can possibly affect both applications' eligibility status. Organizations or fiscal sponsors must be tax exempt under Internal Revenue Code Section 501c3 with its fiscal year ending in 2021 filed with the IRS through their 990 or 990N. Applicants must meet additional specific eligibility requirements included in the grant program guidelines, and we will cover those specifically about cities initiative in this workshop. So proof of headquarters and residence. So to be eligible for any Houston Arts Alliance grant, you must live within the city of Houston limits. Within your application, your proof of headquarters or residency is paperwork demonstrating a physical address in the city of Houston limits. A physical address is verified by staff through the online council member mapping tool, which you can access through the guidelines or by Googling "who is my council member." Again, PO boxes are not accepted, and this documentation must include your name. I want to stress the importance of verifying your address using that online council member mapping tool. There are some instances where we have folks who apply and technically their address says, you know, it's in Houston, Texas, but when it's typed into that online mapping tool, it actually falls outside of city limits. So please, please, please make sure you use that tool to verify that you are within city limits. Acceptable documents that demonstrate proof of residency in the city of Houston for individual artists or creatives can include an insurance statement, a state issued ID or a driver's license, a phone or utility bill, a current lease, or an IRS tax filing. This document must be addressed to you as an individual. If you are applying as a collaboration or a collaborative, one artist must be the point of contact for the application and submit proof of materials for that one artist. Acceptable documents for organizations and fiscal sponsors can include mail from a government entity addressed to the organization, a current lease agreement, a bank statement, or insurance. That documentation must be addressed to the organization. So it should not be addressed to the individual or the applicant who is applying on behalf of the organization. It needs to have the organization's name addressed in the document. So for fiscal sponsors, both fiscal sponsors and the fiscally sponsored project must demonstrate residency within the city of Houston limits. The sponsor's board of directors must adhere to the highest standards of legal and fiduciary responsibility in its policymaking and governance of the organization. The sponsor's board must pass a resolution approving the fiscal sponsorship arrangement as expressed in a written agreement with the project, and that written agreement will need to be provided and included in your application. The sponsor must have a conflict of interest policy in place that contemplates conflicts with sponsored projects and their leadership and provides clear direction for vetting potential conflicts and otherwise implementing the policy. The sponsor must maintain sufficient financial resources to assure continuous, uninterrupted operation and employ procedures and internal controls based on generally accepted accounting principles and all regulations. The sponsor must evaluate the capability, potential, and experience, as well as the integrity of the project leaders to assure a constructive, mutually respectful working relationship between the sponsor and the project. These are the guiding principles and a list of best practice items for fiscal sponsorship arrangements. And you will also be able to see this list in the guidelines. So it's important to note how fiscal sponsors will set up their profile in Smart Simple. So the project or the fiscally sponsored project will register as an organization in the HAA grants portal. The individual applicant or collective who has the fiscal sponsorship, again, must have residency in the city of Houston limits. And then once the project is in the grant portal and has started a new application, they will need to associate their fiscal sponsor to their application. So this is done by selecting associated contacts in the menu on the left side of the screen when your application is open. You will search for your fiscal sponsor and then choose their role as fiscal sponsor for your project. The project must also submit a project budget table for your grant application. If you have any complications in setting up the fiscal sponsor role while you're filling out your application, never hesitate to reach out to the team. We can walk you through it. All right, so once you've gone through the eligibility guidelines, you say, yes, I'm eligible. The next thing that you want to ensure is that you have a public presentation component. So it's important to be aware of the public presentation requirements. One public presentation, either in person or virtual, is required during the grant cycle term. The event must be open to the public, benefiting a City of Houston audience. Public presentations can be ticketed, however, they cannot exclude the public or limit who is able to participate. If the event has a limited capacity, everyone must have equal access or opportunity to attend on a first come or first served basis. And if you are applying for a public art proposal or with a public art proposal that might require a city permit or an approval, such as a publicly installed art, street closure, sound amplification, or murals, you will be solely responsible for securing the necessary permits, permissions, insurance, and approvals. And some important examples of events that grantees have done in the past include art exhibitions, film screenings, dance, music, theater performances, online arts programming, so digital programming, literary readings, arts festivals. Yes, it's expansive. So something else to note, nonprofit organizations or applications whose primary programming takes place in a K-12 school must have public-facing art programs that are open to the public. So the public programming that is geared toward youth audiences still has to be accessible to a general public. Other important requirements to note, we do pre-request the W-9 and ACH forms in your applicant profile. This helps HAA alongside our finance team process payments seamlessly when decisions are approved. And finally, again, please make sure that you upload a clear image of your ID, your passport, or other documents to prove that you are, one, you're eligible, your age is eligible, and two, that you're within City of Houston limits. All right, another pretty critical part of the application are the work samples that are provided. So as a part of your application, you can upload a maximum of 10 work samples. These can be 5 images or audio files in addition to 5 PDFs with links to YouTube sites or other websites, images, or manuscripts. This section is meant to demonstrate the excellence in the proposed project or the applicant's previous or current body of work. All right, so let's talk about the grants portal because this is where you go to submit your application. So once you are ready to apply, you're going to go to haa.smartsimple.com. This is our portal. If you have an account, you can log in using your password. If you forgot your password, you have the ability to reset. If not, and if this is your first time applying for a grant, you're going to register a new profile into our system. So once you're registered or you've logged back into your profile, you're going to click on organizational profile for organizations or my profile for individuals to upload required documents and update your profile. So if your email has changed or you would like to change your email, if your contact information has changed, please make sure to update that in your profile. When you are ready to start your application, you're going to scroll down to funding opportunities, click apply now to begin the application. So if you are interested in applying for the 2023 Cities Initiative Round 1 grant, you are going to scroll to the Cities Initiative Round 1 2023 grant, and you're going to click apply now to start that application. So once you start and complete your application, you're going to hit submit. Once the application is submitted, it's important to note that if any required information is left out of the application, it will not allow you to submit. So you'll want to make sure that you fill out all of the required fields before you hit submit. And then once your application is submitted, Houston Arts Alliance staff will review the applicant's eligibility and application's completeness. We have a curing process that allows for some items to be fixed in the application. Eligible applications are then forwarded to a peer panel to be scored and ranked. Once we have the peer panelists' recommendations, applications are forwarded to the HAA Grants Committee, who reviews and votes to assure the process is being followed with integrity. From there, the recommendations are sent to the Mayor's Office of Cultural Affairs, and the Mayor has the final approval on all award recommendations. So recommendations are not final until the Mayor signs off on them, and that's when we can send out the notifications. This is just another review of what we, the staff, verify when we are doing our eligibility check. So something that I want to circle back to really quickly and touch on is our curing process. So I mentioned it a few seconds ago, but the curing process allows for some items in your application to be fixed. These items are either missing or incorrect documentation. You will be notified via email and have about 5 business days to cure your application through Smart Simple. So for individual artists, some of the items that can be cured include maybe a blurry or invalid proof of age, an outdated proof of residency documentation. And for organizations, that can include maybe an outdated proof of headquarters. We will give you an opportunity to submit up-to-date documentation, or say you're missing your fiscal sponsorship agreement, or it's outdated. We'll allow you to submit up-to-date or missing documentation within those 5 days in order to move your application from being ineligible to eligible. Keep in mind that applications will not be reopened to correct narratives or to correct or add work samples, to change your responses to questions, or to update your budget. So failure to submit curing items on time, so within the deadline that you will be provided, will result in the ineligibility of your application, and it will not be considered for funding. So it's really important to be on the lookout for an email, just in case you receive, an email saying that something in your application needs to be cured, because you do have a limited number of days that you are eligible to cure the documentation. All right, so let's say you've submitted your application, you're eligible, you're moving on to the peer panel. So the panel probably has the largest job in the review process because their scores determine the funding ranks. Our panelists include a diversity of skills, self-identities and experiences, which ensure they can properly assess merit in each of the applications. HAA seeks to represent the various Houstonians and visitors that our cultural community serves. We seek panelists locally, regionally, nationally, and sometimes internationally, globally. We do invite anyone with arts experience or even arts enthusiasts to be a panelist. You can visit HoustonArtsAlliance.com/HAA-panels to learn more. And I would invite everyone here today to check out that form. And if you're interested in being a panelist, we'd love to have you. Another important thing to note about the peer panel is that this process removes HAA staff, grants committee and board, as well as their immediate families from the evaluation of grant applications, except for objective scoring sections outlined. So, you know, the panels really do have an incredible amount of influence, again, on the scoring of the applications, the ranks of the applications, and the grants committee and MOCA, they're really just verifying that the process that we used to adjudicate the panels were done with the utmost integrity, but the staff, the board, the grants committee, we do not have any say-so over the scores of the applications. So again, the grants committee reviews panelists' recommendations. They do not vote on the grantees or the amounts. And once those recommendations are approved by the grants committee, they are sent to MOCA. After MOCA reviews, the mayor makes the final approval for all awards. Before they're final, he sends over a letter to say, yes, I am approving the recommended awards, and then we send out notifications. All right, now let's talk specifically about the Cities Initiative grant program. So Cities Initiative typically provides funding for $5,000 to $10,000 to individual artists and nonprofits for strategic and creative opportunities to engage visitors and residents while building upon Houston's cultural identity and tourism. This grant program is funded with cash in hand, and any request exceeding $10,000 it does require a preliminary meeting with grant staff. There are 3 funding areas which that are a part of the city's initiative program, and it makes it a unique aspect. Successful projects will align with one of the 3 following areas. The first funding area is the Art Disaster Resilience Awareness funding area. The second is the Art Neighborhood Cultural Destinations funding area. And the third is the Art Conference Tourism funding area. So let's talk about the Art Disaster Resilience Awareness funding area. So the proposed work that are applying under this funding area should address the awareness and preparedness of environmental risks such as climate crisis, flooding, food deserts, hurricanes, tropical storms, environmental justice, maybe electricity disruptions, and other similar topics using the form or vessel of art. The scale for this is every Houstonian, every neighborhood, every steward of our bayous and watersheds, the city of Houston, and all the cities and counties in Greater Houston. So Mayor Turner's Resilient Houston is a framework for how to move forward to help people, places, and systems be safer and stronger. It supports our dynamic and diverse city so we can continue to work together to advance for resilience at every scale. And that is why the Resilient Houston plan is the framework that really supports the funding area related to art and resilience. So if you're interested in learning more about that plan, we have links to that in the guideline, and that could serve as a really great tool to help frame your project around resiliency. Checking out chapter 2 might be probably the best place to start, because the focus is on the resilience awareness funding area. It focuses on safe and equitable neighborhoods, and its 4 goals are to ensure that neighborhoods have equitably resourced plans, invest in arts and culture to strengthen community and resilience, ensuring all neighborhoods are healthy, safe, and climate ready, and lastly, to build up and not out, to promote smart growth as Houston's population increases. Again, please review this document to understand the city's goals for resilience, and to think of ideas on how you can advance resilience in Houstonians, neighborhoods, and the greater city or region. So the second funding area is the Art Neighborhood Cultural Destinations funding area. Think about this one as a project that builds community cohesion and celebrates neighborhood identity. The main idea behind this funding area is to create projects that aren't superficially going into neighborhoods to have an art event. It's about having conversations with people that live in that neighborhood, really uplifting that neighborhood, and including artists or vendors, other creatives from that neighborhood into your project. And the third funding area, art and conference tourism. This funding area really engages conference participants with an activity that features Houston artists. So proposed work should be in partnership with a significant conference that's in town, to provide those participants, residents, and visitors and activities that features Houston artists or arts and cultural attractions in Houston. And the idea behind this funding area is not to necessarily create your own conference, but to approach a conference and incorporate an art event that you have an idea about into that conference. So really, really trying to figure out a way to include your art idea, concept, or again, even bringing the conference into the arts community of Houston and having some collaboration, conversation as it relates to what's going on with the conference. Here are some things to think about as you are writing your project proposal. Community engagement. The project should include working collaboratively with and through groups of people affiliated by either geographic proximity or special interest. Measurable impact. The project should attract and be marketed to audiences from outside of the city of Houston, either physically or digitally. Documented support of local artists and creatives. So it'd be great if the budget reflects payments to Houston-based artists and creatives, and a clear alignment with the 3 funding areas. So the project scope should fit well into one of those 3 areas that we just discussed. You can find a list of previously awarded grantees on the guidelines. Here are a few examples of previously awarded organizations and individuals. Important things to note, again, that I've probably touched on before, but I just want to bring attention to it again. So if you would like to apply for more than $10,000, you must schedule a meeting to discuss your application with the grant staff before submitting that request. If you do not submit, request that meeting before submitting your application, and you have a request more than 10K, if you are awarded, you will only be able to receive a maximum of 10K. So please make sure that if you need or want to request more, that you schedule that meeting with us prior. Another important thing to note, if you are awarded, you can only receive a Cities Initiative grant once a year. So one Cities Initiative grant per calendar year. So if you are awarded during round 1 and you apply to round 3, you will automatically be considered ineligible because you've already received a Cities Initiative grant in this calendar year. And for organizations seeking Cities Initiative funding, proposed activities should not be a part of the applicant's regular programming or annual schedule of activities or events. So if you have questions around whether the Cities Initiative proposal that you are submitting might fall under your annual scheduled programs, please meet with the staff so we can talk that through with you before you submit your application. Let's briefly run through what funding cannot be used for. So, of course, any activities taking place outside of the city of Houston cannot be funded. Any activities at Miller Outdoor Theater. So if you are already receiving money for a project through Miller Outdoor Theater, you will not be eligible for funding for an HAA grant because they are also, Miller is also hot funded. The activity must take place within the grant term. Any activity outside of the grant term will not be funded or will result in the requirement of, you returning or reverting the funds. Also, grants made directly to K through 12 public, private, or charter schools, colleges, or universities, including collaborative projects or programs, are not allowed if that project does not have a public presentation that is open to the general public. So please, please, please make sure that the public presentation that you are required to do is open to the general public. Funds cannot be used toward re-granting funds, for example, award ceremonies, cash prizes, or fundraising activities. City of Houston employees, board members, advisory board members, and their immediate family are not eligible for funding. Neither are Houston Arts Alliance employees, elected officials, board members, staff. Trade fairs, primarily commercial nature or consumer shows, they're not eligible for funding. For-profit entities may not apply directly. A for-profit applicant may apply through a fiscal sponsor that has 501c3 tax-exempt status. Faith-based organizations using funds for activities that are primarily religious in their purpose, or any activities that exist as a part of a religious sermon or services are not permitted. And any activities receiving funds from other HAA programs, including collaborators, apply to work on different components of the same project. So organizations and individuals collaborating on the same project, they cannot apply separately for support to fund the same project. One collaborator has to apply on behalf of the project. All right, so all of the questions related to the Cities Initiative grant are available in the guidelines for your reference. So you can see them in the guidelines as well as in the grants portal when you're figuring out your application, but we'll also review the different review criteria areas here. So there are 3 primary areas: the artistic programming, public benefit, and stewardship of public resources. With artistic programming, applicants need to demonstrate artistic and cultural expertise. It would be great if you could document past successes and demonstrate the ability to execute the proposed activities that you are laying out in the current project. Clearly define the public programming that you are imagining. It's great if it's imaginative and innovative and relevant for Houstonians and visitors. Also make sure to include work samples that demonstrate your artistic vision and your ability, again, to execute the proposed activities. The public benefit section, applicants need to demonstrate effective strategies in marketing and audience engagement that is inclusive, publicly accessible, and seeks to engage all Houstonians and visitors. The proposed activities should be feasible in its potential and scope to share work with an understood and defined audience. And then in the stewardship of public resources section, it's important that applicants demonstrate the ability to steward public resources, show appropriate preparation to complete proposed activities, and a budget that, again, is feasible and demonstrates investment in artists and local talent. So under artistic programming, there are a few questions that you will answer. So those include sharing a detailed description, of course, of the overall artistic programming. How will you describe the communities you are working with? What is the goal of the work? How will arts and culture be used in the chosen funding areas, whether that's the Art and Resilience, neighborhood, or conference? You'll also need to list out your event locations, activity descriptions with dates, descriptions, and addresses for the event included. A description of how the applicant will demonstrate the impact and benefits of the project will need to be addressed in the public benefit section. This is the how and the why, and the following should be considered. How will you engage local community members and visitors? What artists will participate, and how will they contribute and be compensated for their work? What shared interests or challenges exist within the community, and how will you as the applicant address those? So, this section is really about impact, benefit, responsiveness to the community, and audience engagement. The second half of the public benefit section is really about marketing and promotion. So, it's important to speak to what your marketing and promotional plan will be. What marketing platforms are you using? How will this highlight Houston as an arts and cultural tourist destination? And what promotional efforts will be used to attract community participation and engagement? The last section, the stewardship of public resources section, this is where you really lay out your budget and timeline. So this is where you include a description of how you intend to use the funds. And the following should be considered. What is the overall proposed project timeline? Laying out a detailed project budget table with full cost budget for the proposed arts and cultural programming. There's also a yes or no question that is included. It's related to artist fees, and you simply say yes or no if you are going to be investing in individual artists and artistic practices through the payment of artist fees. If you are an artist yourself, then you would automatically select yes for that question, because you would be paying yourself, hopefully, through this artist fee. So who uses the budget table? In short, everyone. But specifically for Cities Initiative, if you are an organization or an individual artist, you will be filling out the budget table. So let's talk about how that is done. So the top the top of the budget table, you are going to see the income section, and you're going to use the income and expenses table to report the full cost of your proposed arts and cultural programming. If recommended for funding, the award amounts will follow the guidelines for the specific grant program to which the applicant applies. So make sure that whatever you are expressing in that income section or in the cost section, you know, it's eligible to be covered via HAA funding. So in the income section, you're going to add all of your funding sources, including the amount you are requesting in your grant. In row 1, the contributed city of Houston row, you're going to list your request. So the actual amount that you are requesting from Houston Arts Alliance under the amount of request column. In rows 2 through 9, you will list other funding sources under the other funds column. The column will automatically calculate the sum, which will appear in the row labeled total. In the expense section, this is where you fill out, so in the amount of request column, you're going to cover all of the expenses that will be covered by the Houston Arts Alliance grant, the city funded grant. Be sure to review again what may not be covered in the may not be funded section on pages 9 through 10 of the grant guidelines to ensure only eligible expenses again are being listed in this column. In the other funds column, you should list all the other expenses that will be covered by other funding sources. The columns will automatically calculate the sum, which will appear in the row labeled total. Oops. In the description column, you can use this column to provide additional details about the income or expense line item. And just to cover specific expenses that are not permitted, first, we do not cover travel outside of the city of Houston. Deficits, loans, interest on loans, fines, penalties, or cost of litigation, training, including but not limited to classes, conferences, or workshops. The purchase of equipment exceeding $250, except rental costs directly affiliated with the funded project. So you can rent equipment exceeding $250. You cannot purchase equipment exceeding $250 for clarity. HA does not cover capital expenses, and meals, refreshments, and catering expenses are also not permitted for coverage. So this is an application checklist. You know, make sure that you have completed the application form in its entirety, that you have uploaded all of your eligibility verification documents. Your work samples are included, and other required documents such as your W-9 and ACH forms are also included in the application before you hit submit. Once your application form is complete, you've submitted and double checked for your own eligibility, your work samples are uploaded, and the rest of your documents are uploaded. Again, submit from this point on. It's our turn to take over for eligibility verification, and we will be in touch with you if there are any if there's any curing that needs to take place as it relates to your eligibility verification documents. Here's a nice little timeline of activities as it relates to round 1 of Cities Initiative. So the grant launched April 1st, 2023. It closes April 30th, 2023 at 11:59 p.m. HAA has extended the deadline for applications. So in the past, it was 5 p.m. and it has been extended to 11:59. No application will be accepted after this date. May 1st through May 12th, we will verify for eligibility. May 16th through June 5th, panelists will review and score applications independently. On June 5th, panelists will convene to review and finalize award recommendations. June 7th through the 15th, award recommendation packets will be prepared for subsequent approvals. On June 22nd, the HAA Grants Committee will vote on the approval of the recommendation packet. June 26th through July 14th, MOCA will review and approve the award recommendations. And our goal is by July 17th, grantees will be notified of their awards via email. We will also send out ineligible and declination notifications at that time as well. So what happens after an acceptance? So let's say you receive that notification, you have received your round 1 2023 Cities Initiative grant. After we send out notifications, we will send contracts. And once you sign your contract, the grants division will send your first payment to the finance department. So first processing for the first payment takes about 2 weeks for disbursement into the account that you provided us. You sign your contract. The grant staff sends your payment to the finance department for processing. It takes about 2 weeks for us to disperse that into the account that you provide to us. You receive 80% of your payment upfront. So once you sign your contract, you receive 80% of your award amount. You can submit your final report at any time over the course of the grant term, so long as you have documentation showing that the project has come to an end. And once you submit your final report, you will receive the remaining 20% of your award. So the second or final payment comes after approval of your final report. There are 4 requirements that you need to submit as a part of your final report. The first are work samples to verify that the public presentation took place. So in the work sample, we are looking for images, links, or videos that show documentation of the public presentation. Second, there's going to be a financial report that you are asked to submit. This will include a list of expenses that are eligible for funding and you used, with the HAA city funded grant that you received. 3, you're going to need to submit your event to the cultural events calendar. So you will post your event on submit.haatx.com. This is a city calendar, a calendar that we manage with the city that promotes events taking place in Houston. So not only is this an incredible opportunity for you to be able to spread the word about your event, your public presentation, but it is also a requirement that you submit to that calendar as a part of your award. And then lastly, marketing materials. You'll need to include the City of Houston seal and a credit line to credit the city and HAA on your marketing materials used to promote your event. You can find that crediting line and the logos at haatx.com/logos. And information about the final report requirements can be found at haatx.com/final-report. So again, at that website, you'll be able to find exactly what the final reporting requirements are, keep guidelines that help prepare you for the final report as you are working on your project throughout the grant term. And then lastly, how to submit the final report. You're going to submit your final report in the HAA Smart Simple portal, the same place where you submitted your application. Here are the application deadlines for the year. So these are application deadlines specifically for Cities Initiative and Let Creativity Happen. Again, the first deadline is April 30th for activities taking place after July 31st. The second is June 30th for activities taking place after September 30th. And the last is September 30th for activities taking place after December 31st, 2023. Here is a schedule of our workshops currently, all of our virtual workshops that are going to be taking place this year. Of course, the Cities Initiative workshop was today. We have a Let Creativity Happen workshop tomorrow at 1 o'clock. We have a Support for Organizations workshop happening July 5th, a Support for Artists and Creative Individuals workshop taking place July 6th, and a festival workshop taking place July 7th. All of these links are available for you to register for the Zoom workshop online. So if you're interested in participating in any of those other workshops, you will find those dates and registration links on our workshop page online. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us with any questions or just to say hello. To request a meeting or ask questions, contact the grants team through the online support desk, or you can call 713-527-9330, extension 450. We also have here a link with grant resources. This is a great place to figure out about all of our grant opportunities, access the grant guidelines, and also be able to figure out how to get in contact with the team if you need extra support. All right, we're back at our question and answer session.
So I applied for a grant. I think the deadline was last October for a short film that I'm scheduled to shoot. I was wondering, I initially thought that I would be able to get another grant to finish it, but I understand that I won't be able to get another grant for that project. Correct?
So I can jump in and answer that. So the requirement for projects is that you cannot have them funded more than once. If you're doing a project where there is, like a phase 1 or phase 2 or phase 3, that would need to be established in each application. So, potentially not knowing that you were going to come back for a second, sometimes, especially with films, because of how extensive the production can be. Sometimes people will come in and they'll just, they just want to apply for a grant specifically for pre-production or production or post-production. So your public facing event is kind of what you want to focus on in terms of the way you structure your application. So those all need to be like completely separate, completely different, completely distinguished from each other. So, it would have to be, and it may be hard.
That's okay. Yeah, I just want to make
it has to be
sure I had a good understanding.
Progression, a distinction, in order for it to get funded. So.
Okay, so now that I have that project out the way, I applied for this in October. It should be complete in June. Am I eligible to, when will I be eligible to apply for another project?
So what was the grant that you received? Was it a Cities Initiative?
Yeah, creative, Let Creativity Happen.
Okay, so our Let Creativity Happen and Cities Initiative, you're eligible to receive one of each of those for different projects each calendar year. So you are now eligible to apply for Cities Initiative and LCH, because this is
For another film, yes.
2023 for a separate project.
Okay, all right. And then Cities Initiative, is that, that's a different amount than Let Creativity Happen?
Yes, so Cities Initiative is 5,000 to 10,000, and with the opportunity to request more.
Thank you, Mo, for taking over some of the questions as I was working through technical difficulties. Are there any other questions?
I have a question.
Hi, Kendrick.
Hello, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Pretty good. So my question is, for the city initiatives grant, can it be a published piece or does it have to be something that's original? Because I'm attempting to start directing and I feel like this will be a great grant in order to start that process.
By published, do you mean something that has already been created by someone
Yes.
else?
So like from an actual like housing published company, from a publishing company that I buy the rights to and I actually produce in a in-house theater.
Yeah, that's totally eligible.
Okay.
So long again as it fits into one of those 3 funding areas. And if you have any specific questions about, you know, how to structure that or the fitness of the piece that you're working on for one of those funding areas, make sure to reach out to the team so we could have a one-on-one meeting with you and be able to discuss your project in greater detail.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. Thank you. Any other questions?
Hey, how are y'all? I'm Clara. I'm at HAA. I just wanted to ask and confirm with you too, Taylor. So the due date is the April 30th, which falls on a Sunday, but I believe the last day, like the deadline day, is open for technical issue related questions. Does that technically fall on the Friday, the 28th?
Friday, the 28th would be the last day that you would be able to reach out to the team to ask any technical questions. So yeah, Friday, I would say Friday by 5 p.m. Technical questions related to your project. If you're having issues submitting on Smart Simple, if you're getting an error message and you need the team to help you work through those sorts of technical errors, make sure that you know you reach out to us by Friday, because we will not be able to support over the course of the weekend.
Okay, and I had a question about once we receive notification that we received the grant, we have a year from that date or a year from when we applied? Because I applied in October, but I received the notice recently that I received the Let Creativity Happen grant. I won't finish post-production until the end of June. So I'm wondering, do I have a year from October or a year from March to?
So if you look in your contract, we give you the exact dates of your grant term.
Okay.
So for instance, for anyone submitting to this round, we say, you know, this is for the April 30th deadline. It's for activities taking place after July 31st. So the grant term for round 1 would be August 1, 2023 to August 1, 2024.
Gotcha. Thank you so much.
Of course. But again, if there are any questions around the specific date, always look at your grant agreement for specifics about your grant term.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Dawn.
Thank you, guys.
Other question? Thank you. So lastly, don't ever hesitate to reach out to the team. We are here to support you. We do offer support hours on Tuesdays and Wednesdays in 15-minute increments where we can address specific questions that you have related to your application, your project, your final report, if you have already received a grant. So please please make use of those hours so that we can support you in any way possible. We have our contact information here. There should be a support desk link in the chat. And thank you all for attending our session today. Really appreciate you.
And for those, hold on, guys, wait. And for those conference times, what time, how do we sign up for those increments?
You sign up through the support desk. So when you go to the support desk link, you can actually request a meeting with us, and it will provide you with dates and times of those slots.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Of course. I would say if you're interested in applying, schedule a meeting with us sooner rather than later so you have enough time to take our feedback and incorporate it into your project as you're working on it ahead of the April 30th deadline. Alrighty, if there are no other questions at this time, thank you so much for joining us today. Really appreciate you all, and I look forward to hopefully hearing from you all soon and learning about the wonderful projects that you have in mind for funding. Thank you.